Hare Krishna, Maharaj, Dhanavat Pranam. I think the microphone is switched off.
Hey, Badrinath Maharaj. Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Puramahansa Pariprajakacharya Ashtotar Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Adanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome back to Badri Narayan Maharaj, back among the living.
Glad to be here.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavatam 5:14-33. Evam advanyavarundhano mrityu gajabhayat tamasi giri kandara praye. Evam, in this way, advani, on the path of sense gratification, avarundhanaha, being confined, he forgets the real purpose of life. Mrityu gajapayat, out of fear of the elephant of death. Tamasi, in the darkness, giri kandara praye, similar to the dark caves in the mountains. In this material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activities. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in a mountain cave. Purport: everyone is afraid of death, and however strong a materialistic person may be, when there's disease and old age, one must certainly accept death's notice. The conditioned soul becomes very morose to receive notice of death. His fear is compared to the fear experienced upon entering a dark mountain cave, and death is compared to a great elephant. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tathati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Pradishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi pranamami hori priye. Vansha kolpatarubhyascha kripa sindhobhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Evam Advan Yavarundhano Mrityu Gaja Bhayat Tamasi Giri Kanda Praye. We were hearing about how the monkeys were having a festival, swinging around from tree to tree, from mate to mate, having sex. How wonderful, and how much more fun than a barrel of monkeys. But here, evam, in this way, advanya varundhano, they become confined. The monkeys or their human counterparts aren't liberated by this, by the festivities. Rather, advani, on the path of sense gratification, avarundhana, they become confined. They become confined. This is our life. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanam cha. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and having sex. This is the monkey's business. Confined to this narrow sliver of activities, and imagining, yes, we're enjoying. What is that? Icon. There's a word like that. Aihikarteshu, for immediate happiness. For that, the sake of that immediate happiness, their life is limited to this pathetic little sphere. But mrityu gaja bhayat, sadasamud vigna dhyam, their minds are always agitated, afraid, asatgrahat, because they're holding on to something that can't continue, that doesn't exist. Doesn't exist means it doesn't exist permanently. It's like a dream. It exists for a moment and then it's gone. Nasato vijite bhavo napavo vijite sata. Upayorapi drishtontas tvanios tattvadarshibhi. The tattvadarshis see that there's that which exists and that which doesn't exist. That which exists is the spirit and the spiritual platform. And what doesn't exist is matter, this body, this material world, the festival of sense gratification. It has no substantial existence. A satgrad, if I'm grabbing onto that, I'm grabbing onto something that has no substantial existence. And finally, mrityu sarvaharasjaham, Krishna comes as death and wipes everyone out. We have this expression, it's become trendy, the elephant in the room, which usually means, something we don't want to talk about. But this is the ultimate elephant. mrityu. That we may be having a wonderful festival, but we're all going to die. And meanwhile, we're busy with our identity. I'm powerful. I'm what's the word? Joyful. I'm clever. I'm vidugda. What's the word? Debonair. Yeah, debonair is a good word. On top of the world. And we have these identity. I'm straight, I'm gay, I'm trans, they keep adding letters. LGBT. That's going to be what they do in school these days, LBGB, whatever it is. LBGT, false identity, celebrating my identity, my sexuality, but the celebration will be attended by death. And death wipes out everything. And bhayat, everyone is afraid. I'm not afraid. No, everyone is afraid. When death comes, everyone is afraid. And that, especially we see, therefore, it's a statistic, I don't know the statistic, but some enormous proportion of the expense of medical care comes in the last year or so. Because people are fighting like anything not to die. Try this, try that. Can we try this? Can we try that? They'll subject themselves to all kinds of miseries, to injections and radiation and chemotherapy and you name it, not to die. And they're fearful or dulling their fear by alcohol, by depressants, by antidepressants, by this or by that. But this is intelligent. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna discusses the items that constitute knowledge, this is one of them. To be always cognizant, anudarshanam, to see clearly, or to always see. Anu means by following in the footsteps of great authorities, and anu means always. Anudarshanam, always seeing. Seeing what? Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosha. To see these faults of material life. The fault is not a strong enough term, I think. Dosha is fault, but it's the kind of fault that makes everything else, that cancels everything else out, that makes everything a failure. Like a tragic flaw in a character, it brings down the whole hero. One small fault, and it brings down the man. So this is the fault that brings down, or Prabhupada, this is the fault that brings down material existence. Or Prabhupada gave the example, sand and sweet rice. You have nice sweet rice and you mix in, half a teaspoonful of sand. And that ruins everything. And you get these fools who say about life, well, you know, you take the good with the bad, you know what I mean? Well, here's some sweet rice for you. Only half a spoon of sand. Take the good with the bad. Test out your philosophy. But an intelligent person sees that the bad ruins the party. We have our festival of sex, our festival of material enjoyment. But this ruins the whole party. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. These four miseries. Birth, which is miserable. Among other miseries, it starts you off on material life. That's miserable. It's miserable for the mother. It's miserable for the child. And mrityu, death. Jata svihi dhruvo mrityu. For one who's born, death is sure. Jata svihi dhruvo mrityu. And jara and vyadhi. Jara means old age. And vyadhi, disease. They go together. Generally in old age, of course, one may become diseased at any time, even congenitally, from birth. But often, disease is the harbinger of death. The disease is the sign that now you're in old age, one disease after another, this one, that one. We did your blood tests, and you've got this, you've got that, you've got this. We have to boost that and be careful about that and keep an eye on this. And these are all signs that the machinery is wearing out. And so one becomes subjected to various diseases. And finally death comes. So this notice, the jara and vyadhi, old age and disease, are like notices. Death is coming. But the notice is not much welcomed, especially by the conditioned souls. Then everything is finished. Death means everything is lost. Sarvahara, everything is taken away. But for the Krishna conscious person, death is favorable. Disease is favorable. Old age is favorable because he keeps these things in mind. Anudarshanam, this is knowledge. He keeps these things in mind, and that vision is favorable. Chanakya Pandit says that one who wants to enjoy sense gratification should think that he'll live forever. And one who wants to advance in Krishna consciousness should think that I may die at any moment. In the book of Ecclesiastes it said, better the house of mourning than the house of feasting. And there's one commentator who says that even when the wise are not physically in the house of mourning is always within them. One keeps it in mind. This is where it ends up. And so we have what's called smashan vairagya. One goes to a funeral, one goes to the burning god, and one sees this is the end, and one thinks about the ephemeral nature of the world and everything in it, and develops a sense of detachment. And then when the funeral's over, he goes back to his ordinary program. Forgets. So Krishna consciousness is that process by which one doesn't forget. One remains mindful that this is the problem. And what should I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the first time. Keami, kene amai, jaratapachoi. Who am I and why are these miseries always on me? This is intelligence. To see the incompatibility of our spiritual nature and the material world, and therefore to seek to solve these essential problems of life, not the superficial, petty problems that are made to be the great issues of the day, but the ultimate problems. If I don't die from this, I'm going to die from that. So I don't, together we can conquer cancer. Together we can conquer this disease, that disease. Together, just give us your money and we'll find a way. Together we fools can waste our time shifting the burden from one shoulder to the other shoulder. If not cancer, then tuberculosis. If not tuberculosis, then AIDS. If not AIDS, then whatever comes next. COVID. If not COVID, then something else. Then war. If not war, then something else. But the problem is not war, it's not COVID, it's not cancer. The problem is death. For the soul, that's not a problem. The jayate mriyate va kadachit. It's never born, it never dies. Nitya shashvato yam. It's eternal, ever existing. Nahangyate hangyamane shirire. It doesn't die when the body dies. Brahmabhuta prasanatma. The person who understands this, who realizes this, becomes joyful. Nashochati nankangshati. There's nothing to lament over, nothing to hanker for in this world. Samasarveshu bhuteshu. He sees everything equally. Mad bhaktim labate param. Therefore he takes to devotional service to put an end to these problems of life. And of course the Buddhists also want to put an end to these problems of life. The impersonalists also want to put an end to the problems of life. So the Buddhists, they have their suicidal approach. Let's put an end to the problems of life by ending life. That's called throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They get rid of the miseries by getting rid of the person. Prabhupada told a story, some child had a fever. So the parents called the doctor came and gave the child an injection. And the mother, the child's not breathing. Doctor, the child's not breathing. Is the fever gone? Yes. Then, problem solved. And the impersonalists are not any better. They're crypto-Buddhists. They're Buddhists, hidden Buddhists. Essentially the same agenda. Get rid of the individual self. Not by denying its existence, but by merging it into the great oneness. Either way, we got rid of the person, so we got rid of the problem. So for the Vaishnavas, Kaivalyam Narakayate, this is hellish. This is hellish to get rid of my troubles by getting rid of me. We don't, if I'm suffering from disease, I don't want death, I want health. So this is our spiritual healthy condition, to revive our eternal relationship with Krishna and to act in that relationship and develop love for Krishna. This is our real business. Tamasi? Yeah, Tamasi Giri Kandara Praya. Right now we're in the darkness as if we were in a mountain cave. It's so thick. People are busy, their noses in the newspaper or the internet, and they're getting enlightened about politics and sports and what have you. But they're confined within the darkness of their little caves. Tamasima Jyotirgama. The Upanishads say, don't stay in the darkness, come to the light. So that's this Krishna consciousness movement. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I say you've set up a false measure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I say, well, I should be able to fly in the sky like an eagle, and that's my measure, then I'm going to be disappointed my whole life walking. Well, okay, fine, I'm walking, but I'm not flying. So I remember my great-grandmother when she died. I was getting ready to die. And I said, are you afraid? Are you afraid? She said, no, I lived a good life. She said, I don't want to be in pain. But she really wasn't. So I don't accept this, that, everyone's afraid of death. And, it's just part of life. I had a good run. I don't want to be in pain. I understand that. But, you set up this measure that you're supposed to be free from these things. Therefore, naturally, you're unhappy.
I think you're right, actually.
Hey, wait a minute. Don't leave us there, Maharaj.
Mark this in the newspaper that I thought Badri Narayan Maharaj was right. We agreed on something.
We agree on the core things. We agree on the core issues.
Yes.
Matters.
We agree on everything. That generally there's fear of death. Therefore there's doctors, there's insurance, there's so many elaborate arrangements or precautions, ordinary precautions, because we don't want to die. But there can come a stage where we say that this is worse. Living is worse. Let me die. Sometimes it's the people who are ultra depressed, the alcoholics and so on. Let us die. In fact, this is an analysis, not mine, but it's there, that what do alcoholics want? Those who are the heaviest drinkers, what do they want? And the answer is that they want to destroy themselves. They're exceedingly self-destructive. And therefore, this is sort of old news, but liquor ads typically appeal to that self-destructive tendency Because if you're selling a product, you want to sell it to the heaviest users, number one, because they're going to spend the most money on your product, and number two, because everyone else is going to follow them. You know, if the big drinker is drinking Jack Daniels, then everyone else in the room will drink Jack Daniels. And so their advertisements typically, if you get deep into them, and we won't do that analysis, they're designed and very, what's the word, cleverly, one should say diabolically designed to appeal to a death wish, really, self-destructiveness. Just as a... Yeah. I can mention two things. One is that it's been pointed out, and what is that? Trust and verify. I've verified that in liquor ads, if one looks, one can see twisted, screaming faces and so on, etched into the ice cubes, you know, from Photoshop and all of that. So, you know, we're drinking, but this is what we're drinking. As another sort of a very tame, generic, but profound example, there's a liquor, we'll give it a plug, Johnny Walker Black Label. And one ad going back some years, in the end, there's only black. Spooky. In the end, there's only black. So sometimes the wish for self-destruction comes early. Otherwise, sometimes in old age, it's not worth it anymore. The pain outweighs any benefit of living. The suffering that one has to go through. The jara and the vyadi become more fearsome than death itself. So, yes, then I'm not afraid of death anymore. It's just, let me out of here.
Unfortunately, they don't get out.
That's the next problem.
Just another aspect of gross ignorance is that people think, oh, it's going to end, I'll be free. You know, there's no rest, there's no peace. If they knew what the reality was, then, you know, I mean, those people in Yamadutas and the hellish planets and the rebirth, and there's no death. Nobody dies. But you can end this body, but so it's just another aspect of ignorance to welcome death like that. Like the suicidal. You know, I'm young suicidal. You think, oh, I'm going to end this thing, but no, then you become a ghost, and there's more and more misery. It's not a solution.
One suicide would be more common, but we become cowards because we don't know what's next. So we put it off. Otherwise, the suicide rate would be much higher. So we also have a self-destructive wish. We want to get rid of this material identity. That's called suicide also. Civil suicide, sannyas. It means that what is the use of this program of trying to enjoy under a false identity? Let me die now, before I die. Let me die before dying. Let this material identity die so that my spiritual identity can live. Let me give up this monkey life. Let the monkey die so that the real self can be happy forever.
So, from the Christian perspective, which was kind of my growing up, sort of, I mean, just culturally, I always assumed I was going to hell. So I was afraid of dying because I would go to hell. And the beautiful thing of finding Krishna consciousness, you realize you're sat. You at least know it. We're realizing it. We're sat, so we're eternal. And that was really awesome to realize, well, I'm eternal, so I'm not going to go to hell forever. That was like that was like the first 2 years in Krishna consciousness. I was like riding high, the fact I wasn't going to hell. So my parents, my mom, they're not devotees yet, but they're pious. My mom's afraid of the pain of death. She doesn't want to go through the death process. She's always cold too, so she actually wants to get cremated, so she'll feel warm for the first time. And my stepfather,
I'm going to remember that. This is.
And I share that because we know the flaw in that reasoning. And then my stepfather, he's from Long Island, a big Italian family. His wish is just to see his parents again.
I'm sorry.
He's from Long Island. He's a big Italian family. His desire is just to see his parents again. That's all he wants to do after he dies. It doesn't matter what happens to me. I just want to see my parents again.
He wants to see his parents again.
Yeah, he loves them. And
if he sees them again, he may not be too happy about what he sees.
So we, as devotees, we know it's different. So what I'm driving at is the uniqueness of a devotee death. I'm not really sure of the death process. I know in parts I've seen briefly in the Bhagavatam, it's described that it's unique, right? Like, how do we die as devotees in terms of not being afraid of that process and knowing that it's part of our trajectory in Krishna consciousness?
There are a few things that you touched upon. One is that what a relief to know that we're not going to hell. That's like the half of it. The other side is, where are we going? We get information from Srimad Bhagavatam about the spiritual world and Krishna's activities in which one can participate and be eternally engaged in Krishna's service. In the Judeo-Christian and generic worldview, there may be a heaven, but the heaven is so vague. And, what do you do there?
Harp music?
Yeah, you sit, just wander around in a toga all the time with this effulgence over your head and listen to harp music. That's pretty boring.
Like being in an elevator.
Yeah.
with whatever they call music,
Yeah. Or sometimes I've seen little tracts where you live forever in heaven, and heaven is like this suburban little quarter with your own little cottage and a picket fence, and your wife is there and your dog is there and the sun is always shining. So it's just kind of like summer in San Diego.
Backyard barbecue.
Yeah, all of that. It becomes vague and that for eternity. So Mark Twain quipped that heaven for piety, hell for society. At least there's something going on down there. There's some action. Right? Heaven is so boring. But from Srimad Bhagavatam, we get the details of the blissful activities of Krishna with his devotees, with all the varieties and so on. So that's one point. As far as death, it's rough. Not that just because I'm a devotee, it becomes like easy peasy. The process is not fun. Therefore, one has to be seriously equipped. It's challenging. It's not that we're, as practicing devotees, totally impervious to all of these things. We see what to do. And if one is serious and holds on to the holy name of Krishna, holds on to Krishna consciousness, then very good. But it's serious business. It's not that death isn't serious. It's serious. But the Krishna conscious person steps on the head of death. In Dhruva Maharaj, the when death came for him, at the same time, transcendental airplane came from Vaikuntha. So as death approached Dhruva Maharaj, Dhruva stepped on death's head and got into the airplane. So this is the path of the devotee. He steps on the head of death. Who was going to say something? Was it? Yes.
I was just thinking of a Prabhupada joke. You said that this man's burning desire was to see his parents, after death. So Prabhupada tells a story about the Christian minister, priest, and he says, you have to stop drinking. He's talking to minors. He says, you have to stop drinking. And they say, well, why? What will happen? We love drinking. So, well, you go to hell. You'll go to hell if you drink. And the guy says, well, my brother drinks. Well, he's going to go to hell too. Well, my uncle drinks. He's going to hell too. Well, my parents drank. They're going to hell. My grandparents are. Well, they're in hell. I said, oh, really? My uncle, my parents, my grandfather, my brother, they're all in hell? Sounds like heaven to me.
And I was just elaborating on Jayadvaita, where saying, you don't know. Okay, fine, you may see them, but where are they and what condition? They may all be a hog family standing in line ready to go into the slaughter. You just know where you're going to see them.
Devamrita Swami, he was visiting here one time, and he was giving a class, and he mentioned how there's one famous Christian in America, and somehow or other someone asked him about heaven, or maybe he was just speaking, but this Christian said, or they asked him, what will you do in heaven? And then he said, well, when I get to heaven, I'll serve God for 100 years. And he said, after that, I'll enjoy. That was his, anyway.
That is the fault of the view of heaven. I don't recall, I keep hearing about, going to your heavenly reward and living an eternal life of happiness in heaven. But rarely do you hear that in heaven you serve God. We don't hear about that. It's more like you're liberated and now you can do what you like. Whatever was on your wish list, God looks on your Amazon account and sees whatever you wanted, and it's all there waiting for you. It's like the very conception that one actively serves God is not in the forefront. And certainly the idea that one can serve God in different varieties of loving relationships is just not found. That you could become the friend of God, that you can become the parent of God, that you can have a conjugal relationship with God. These things are just not found outside of the Bhagavad Dharma. But that's that's what makes heaven worth it. Otherwise, it's just a projection of monkey life into eternity. And therefore, nothing really going for it. A lack of knowledge.
If you are dying from a natural cause, you're able to tell, if you're dying from a natural death, are you able to tell the exact moment, the exact hour when you're going to leave the body?
You're speaking so softly I can barely hear what you're saying.
I'll repeat. If you live in a body from a natural cause, are you able to tell the exact moment, the exact day and maybe hour when you're going to leave the body?
If you leave from a natural cause, can you tell the day and the hour? You mean beforehand?
Yeah, predict. Yeah, predict.
Oh, there are predictors, of course. One doctor told me, we're very good at predicting who's going to die, but we're not very good at predicting when. So
We are too, 100%.
No, but when? But when? That's what he said. We're good at predicting who'll die, but when? We don't know. The patients fool us. We don't know. Then there are other methods of prediction. There's astrology. There's palmistry. There's mystic vision of various kinds, which also tends to be imprecise and unreliable. When in Srila Prabhupada's last days, devotees consulted 5 or 7 astrologers. How long will Prabhupada live, and so on. And they got 7 different opinions, and only one was right. He got it. All the rest of them, he'll live till this. They were all over the lot. That's a problem with astrology, and then what do? Take the answer you like best? So those methods, and even then you're unlikely to get it to the moment, the hour, Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj knew. 7 days, and I'm dead. He was cursed to die. He knew, in 7 days I'll die. But Prabhupada always pointed out, we don't know if we have 7 minutes. We may die at any moment. Therefore, the Chanakya Pandit, the self-realized person, or the person who's serious about self-realization, should think that I might die at any time. Not that, well, I've still got 4 years and 3 months and 12 days. So I can do other things, and when it starts to get close, then I'll do something. We should think that at any time, because it's true, at any time. Even though I may be healthy, I may be hit by a truck, and anything can happen. So the best course is to think that at any time I may die. Someone was saying, I forget who it was or exactly what he said, but maybe it was Mahatma Prabhu, but maybe it wasn't, that when we chant our Japa, we should chant each mantra as if it was our last. Was it Madhava? It may be more than one. It's maybe making the rounds now. Someone will say, I heard it from Jayadvaita Swami. But, to chant, how would you chant on your beads if this was going to be your last mantra? I think you'd chant very attentively. Or in kirtan, how would you chant? Would you be sort of absent-minded, or if you knew this was the last mantra and then you were out? So we could hope that let me chant like that. Let me keep that in mind. Anudarshanam, always see that this is there. The elephant is there. Shall we stop?
Maharaj?
Our man from the Azores.
Yes, Maharaj, if I may I?
Of course.
Maharaj, thank you very much. You're very kind. Maharaj, the mother cat carrying in her mouth the baby cat with love and care, and then we have the same mother cat carrying in her killer mouth the dead mouth. So based on this, my question is.
Oh, I don't think I got what we were based on. The cat?
The cat carries the rat and carries the kitten.
Okay.
One is love, one is cruel death.
Yeah, therefore we better not to be a rat.
Yes, but Maharaj, my question is, is it that in accordance with this figurative way of speaking, when the devotees, the body of the devotee is being killed by death, is it that the devotee will feel the same love that the baby cat is feeling when the mother cat
When the
is carrying
devotee
him?
leaves the body, will the devotee feel death to be like the loving embrace of Krishna? Right? That's the question?
Yes, that is the question.
Okay. That depends on the devotee. If our realization is not so strong, then it's like, we may be, more fearful and more, in anxiety and maybe more conscious of every bodily pang. And if we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then just the opposite. One may leave just in essentially samadhi and perfect consciousness. Don't be a rat. There's one disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, who was a young man who happened to be at Bhaktivedanta Hospital when I was there. And he was diagnosed all of a sudden as having terminal cancer of the spine and given like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. And he was quite a young man and had a little baby. And devotees asked me, would you like to visit him? I said, sure. And they said that actually he was blissful. And when I visited him, he was. An ordinary materialist, why me, and what about my baby and my wife, and I'm hardly even getting started on life, and why is this happening to me? And I'm a devotee, this shouldn't happen to me, and what kind of God is Krishna anyway? Doesn't he see, and this and that? None of that. He was, I'm so fortunate that I got this human form of life. I got a bona fide spiritual master. I got Krishna consciousness. He was just expressing gratitude. I'm so fortunate. And it wasn't, this is what we're supposed to say, and so I'm saying it. From his face, he was blissful. He was blissful. And the story goes on after I left that of course, so many devotees were visiting him, and I forget whether Radhanath Maharaj was in Bombay at the time. And the last day, some Brajbasis happened to come with garlands from the deities in Vrindavan, and just everything, every blessing. Will that be all right? Hmm?
Yes,
Yeah, we're gonna
Maharaj,
end.
don't be the rat.
Yes. Be the
Thank you
kit.
very
Be the
much.
kitten. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Don't be a rat. Be a kitten.
Yes, Maharaj, I'll do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.